staying in partnership, that being a team, being a we, however you see that in how you take on life things, right? How you divide it up within the family is up to you.
Welcome to Rising Above Shadows of Abuse. Rasa describe marriage, right, and healing as lifelong journeys. What does that perspective change for couples?
So it means several things. So let me just kind of say one of the ways that matters, and then we'll get to another one. Years ago, my wife and I were having a discussion. It was really an argument, but we're quiet people, so it was a discussion. And she went to do something. We're both introverts, so we like to process before we speak. And so she went to do something, and I was sitting there, and I went, "Oh, I should have said this is the winning line, right? This is the winning argument in my mind. I'm going to tell her this, and she's going to go, 'Oh, you're so right.'" And so I follow her down. She's doing the laundry, and I follow her down, and I raise my finger, and she said, "Before you say anything, I just want to ask you a question. Is what you're about to say going to help us in being partners for life or not?" And I went, "Never mind." So that perspective, are we going to be partners for life, is one way that matters, because now I have this framework, right? So one way I've talked about it is, let's say the new law was passed and you're told you can only have one vehicle for the rest of your life. That's it. You have one vehicle for the rest of your life. How do you treat that vehicle? Are you going to gun the engine? Are you going to leave it out in the rain? Or are you going to take care of it and baby it and make sure you protect it? Well, that is what we do in a marriage. We say, this is it for life, right? This is my person for life. So how do we protect the relationship to make sure that we keep it safe for life? Not just safe, but thriving. Do I give it the better energy, right? Do I put the better gas in or whatever? Do I really take care of this? That's one way it makes a change. The other is, if we say we are a team in this, that is a sustainable thing that changes over time. So we've now been married 37 years, it'll be 38 years this August. And I still find places where I'm going, "Oh, I'm not thinking about we when I'm thinking about this," right? So some of the obvious ones around money in a family, that's big fights for lots of married couples. And it's usually about what's yours and what's mine rather than what's ours. It's our resource. Everything in the house is our resource. So we figured that out pretty early on, but there's still places where I'm like, I missed that one here. We're our thoughts about this. How do we want to face this? And so that's still a growing thing. It's always a growing thing, because we as humans often go back to my. And so the growth of marriage is being able to go how does that change us? How does that change it when we're talking about our family, our parenting, our resources, our beliefs? All of those things are based in how we think about us, our team.
Thank you. How can couples stay committed to growth even after the immediate crisis has passed?
That is a challenge, right? Because we can fall back into the old patterns again. And so committing to how do we stay in connection? So it's building habits of connection. I don't think that much happens until we've actually built the systems to keep us where we need to be and the habits that allow that to happen. We have habits. We're going to have habits of relating and habits of living that we can examine and go, does this move us in that direction? So I don't expect people, just because of the way our brains work, to wake up every day going, okay, how can I get better at this every day? But we can put the situation in place, the habits in place that create that anyway and that nurture it anyway. So then what we're dealing with is a lesser amount of, oh, I've got to rethink that. And it's more of it just happens. So I am a strong believer in building those systems in everything I do. And let me just say, people often say that's just your personality. It is the opposite of my personality. I just happen to know what works, right? I am not a list person, but I have lists sitting in front of me to make sure that I'm taking care of what needs to be taken care of. My wife loves lists. She gets some pleasure out of just making a list. It doesn't matter if the list is completed. That is not me, but it works. So I do it. And so systems in place. And so I'll say that to people and they'll say, well, I don't have systems. And my response is, that is a system. It's just not a good system. It's not getting you what you want. It's just kind of like we'll deal with what comes our way. So part of that habit building, the system building, is looking and going, what works for us? Sometimes that's a check-in. And so I encourage couples to have a weekly partnership meeting where they talk about particularly what's the calendar, what's coming up on finances, and how are we doing as a couple? What do we need to do differently? It doesn't have to be a long meeting, but that's a point of connection. When people are in the evening, do they catch up with each other? Do they actually listen to each other? When you say, how was your day? And the person says, I had 2 meetings and I had this, and you go, oh, okay. Instead of going, how are the meetings? What happened there? How do you feel about that? What's important about those? That's a different level of connection than we generally do. We just do reporting. We report to each other rather than rapporting, of listening to each other and building a rapport between us. So that's those habits of how we arrange that are what lead us to further growth.
Thank you. And in essence, when you build this rapport, you are bonding, you're getting to know each other at a deeper level, and that is connectedness.
That is connection. So that's emotional connection, right? There's physical connection, there's emotional connection, there's spiritual connection.
Yes.
When I talk with people about that, that suddenly gives them targets of how to connect, right? That sometimes they didn't recognize. Spiritual connection is really talking about what's important. What goals do we have in life? Where do we want to go in life? What big fears do we have in life? That's a level that a lot of couples get away from after they fall in love. Emotional connection is feeling like someone gets you, they understand you, and that you feel like you're supported in both ways. My wife gets me. We try to support each other when things are good or when they're bad. That's emotional connection. And then physical connection is any loving touch. Not any touch, but any loving touch.
So, what does a healthy relationship look like over time, not just during good seasons?
It's staying in partnership, that being a team, being a we, however you see that in how you take on life things, right? How you divide it up within the family is up to you, but to see each other as we're on the team getting through this together. That in and of itself is probably the biggest hallmark I've seen in successful in successful marriages. They see it as a we are in this. That is the number one thing. That allows them to work on the connection. And then to circle back to where we were at the beginning, it also allows it when something comes up day to day, those small annoyances, yes, that you're more able to let them go when you are connected. When you are disconnected, every annoyance is just scratches on the chalkboard. But when you are connected, it's more possible to say, that's fine, I'll let that go. It's just not that big of a deal. And that doesn't, I just want to be clear, that doesn't mean you let significant things go, but those little annoyances. And many times we look at the annoyance and if we ask the question, does this matter for us being a team, for me being who I need to be, or is this really a big deal? Is this something that I need to be concerned about? And that is discernment. And that if we're disconnected, every little thing is going to feel like it's a big deal.
So, your Save the Marriage podcast has reached millions. What do you think resonates mostly or deeply with listeners?
I think that we are in a desperate time for understanding how to get to a healthy marriage. We've talked repeatedly about people just aren't prepared for that. And so they're going in blind. And at some point you go, we can't keep doing this. There are lots of outcomes to we can't keep doing this. Like we can't keep doing this, the marriage is over, or we can't keep doing this, something has to change. And that's part of what I try to provide is let me give you some how-to pieces, some understanding pieces, some awareness pieces of all this. And I try to say it in pretty plain English, hopefully like I have here, that breaks it down to what I think can be complex thoughts into simple ways of approaching this. And so generally when people talk about it, they're like, you put it in very simple language that I can understand and I can do something with. That's my goal. That's what I do in my writing, in my podcast, and in my writing. I always just imagine there's one person that I'm talking to, and we're just having a conversation, just like we are. We're just having a conversation. And so that doesn't require me to use a lot of complex language. My belief is if you can't say it simply, you don't understand it enough to explain it. So let's see if we can be simple about this.
You don't know the audiences you have, so it's better to simplify the language. That way people can run with what you're saying. Thank you.